Welcome everyone to our class on fate, choice, and the natal chart. So I find this to be a very powerful and meaningful, interesting, fascinating topic. And a part of my own inquiry in presenting this is really, what do I actually know? Like what's livable, what's evident, what's true. So I spent this morning really just taking time to review the teachings of my teachers and to sit with my own understanding, the edges of my own ongoing learning. So my intentions here are to offer, to the best that I can, what I currently understand. And let's start with that, because we have to appreciate that this very question, which maybe all of us have asked at different points in our life in different ways, and maybe in some way everyone contemplates on some level, where is choice in our life versus what is fated? That question and how we even think of this question depends so much on who we think we are. It depends so much on how we even think of this question, how we approach it. Rides so much on what is our perception of this world and this life in the first place. Of all the human beings in the world, and this is a Jupiter thing, we all have a cosmology. Everyone has a cosmological, ever unfolding, current, present moment working understanding of reality. It's how we're internalizing our experience, giving it meaning, interpreting it, so we can have an understanding of who am I, what's life all about, what's it about, even if we have a philosophical perspective that says it's meaningless, it's just, even that, there's a need within all beings, or maybe in humans, I can say, to reconcile with the question of what is this? What is this all about? I have not met one human being free of that natural impulse. And we can say astrologically, it's because we all have Jupiter. Jupiter corresponds to a real living function within consciousness that's relevant to all of our ongoing journeys. So we just have to appreciate that any question we ask and the parameters that are available for the answers that we receive are set by the mind, are set by our existent understanding and comprehension of reality. So there's always a point of humility in recognizing two things. There's always more to learn. There's more insight available. There's more to realize. And two, there are those that have come to realizations, come to certain levels of understanding that we can appreciate and respect and meditate upon. And this is never about adopting some kind of belief system. I'm going to talk a lot about astrology, and none of this really is purposeful or useful if you become some kind of blind belief system, but rather to study and meditate on these ideas, on these teachings, and to see where we can find understanding within. All teachings are real when we can actually connect with the inner teacher. And that's sort of my own practice with this. That's my practice with studying the teachings that I'm very much devoted to. It's all about finding our own insight and understanding within. So that's where I'm coming from here. And that's what I invite all of us to do and to share in that orientation, to see if we can really learn something and deepen in our own insight and compassion and understanding of what this is all about. So as I said, and I often say this, I speak this when I introduce my teachings on astrology, our cosmological understanding of astrology, of what this life is all about, really points back to, at the core, who we think we are. So it's useful to start there. We look around this world and we can recognize, okay, we're all manifesting a body experience. There's an experience of time and space. There are things in our life. We all came into a body. We all came into a particular family structure. And for each one of us, there's a particular structural reality that exists right now. And we can easily, all of us, identify how the present moment structural reality has been conditioned and formed and defined by the consistent choice making, the conditioning that's been established long term over a long period of time to bring us to where we are right now. A very easy example of that is the example of physical posture. Whatever kind of bone alignment posture that we have right now is the result of our conditioning. It's the most basic level of, perspective in terms of looking at any facet of our life, and in particular, looking at everything as it is. And we can take our finances, our relationships, our health, our body, and we don't have to start at the starting point, because that can get philosophically a little complex. Like, where does this start? But we can start anywhere and recognize there's been a persistent pattern of choice making. And anything that we've improved upon, like I'm doing this 100 push-up a day thing. And yesterday I reached a threshold where I was able to do more consecutive push-ups at one time than when I began. And I can directly correlate that to this very, very undeniable fact that I have chosen every day to practice. And that choice every day to practice has resulted in an increased capacity to do more push-ups at once. So we can all really agree on that very clear, observable reality. This is Saturn. And Saturn, in the most basic way, says time, structure, parameters, limitations, that which is defined. Saturn corresponds to, from the evolutionary astrology lens, anything that's measurable, anything that we can define, anything that exists within causality. Most souls in this world will, and I even see this astrologically, I often hear many astrologers describe Saturn as reality. I don't agree with that perspective, or at least I feel that perspective is not entirely encompassing of, it's not holistic enough for how I think of Saturn. Most souls will just simply see reality as a Saturn dimension. And even if we have sort of spiritual beliefs or ideals, we'll project our Saturn physical defined parameters of life onto our spiritual ideals. Like, we'll think of God in very Saturn ways. So what this means is most souls on this planet are very defined and conditioned by the parameters of time and space. We're identified with a structural reality. Okay, I'm a male. This is my role. This is what defines me. This is where my value comes from. And thus I see that the template of our human existence isn't anything other than what is. And if I'm seeing the physical reality that I'm existing within as an indication of what is, like the totality of life, I am going to project my cosmological understanding of life and the meaning of life from that stance, from that point of view. If I'm defined by this body, by my relationships, by all the human values that come with this existence, that's going to also define my understanding of reality itself. So I want to start this exploration by offering a very specific perspective on Saturn, which is, to me, a starting point, an essential foundation for understanding what this life's about, how I am currently understanding the reality of choice and fate. We think of Saturn as the template of our soul evolutionary journey, that the parameters, the boundaries, the limitations that are manifest in our life, including the body, including whatever circumstantial realities exist, our financial reality, our health, everything in our life, present moment, is the template for our learning, is where the curriculum is being worked out. The curriculum is not the template. And this is where I think most of us get confused. The curriculum is singular and universal, and it's always the same. And we can speak about the curriculum in so many ways. We can define, because it's singular, our framing of it is going to be different. according to our particular cultural lens or perspective. So I can say our curriculum is remembering what we are, is returning to the love that we are, or self-realization. We could even say healing, if we define healing as a return to the truth. We can thus also say, relative to all the things that we think we are, this curriculum in a way speaks to an undoing or a forgetting or a letting go of what we thought was true, but what is not true. And so much of this is the shift of focus from the template being meaningful and significant on its own as defining who we are to, okay, the template is the container of our deep, holy, precious soul learning. And we're doing it together. So everything in our life, without fail, without exception. This is like an ultimately very radical, unified perspective. Everything serves the same purpose. And this is where I take the teaching from A Course in Miracles, from the very introduction of the course. This is A Course in Miracles. It's a required course. And this line, free will does not mean you can choose the curriculum. It means you can establish what to take when. So let's just start with that perspective. None of us can change the body that we're in right now. I'm assuming that. None of us can snap our fingers and say, right now I have this much more money in my bank, my body looks this way, and my relationships are this way, and my career, my status are this way. All of these things are changeable, but we can't just transcend the template and like implant ourselves into a different form. If we could, I would actually say that would itself signify a certain state in our own learning where the template itself isn't as needed, right? The curriculum, the template, I would define it as limitations and parameters that serve our greatest interests, that serve our benefit, because they become the starting point for our growing self-awareness. And it can very easily seem, especially with our patriarchal conditioning, where we project a lot of shame and judgment, and we've internalized a whole lot of false, incorrect ideas of blame and shame and punishment and wrong and sin that has been learned for quite a long time. It's very easy to look at the limitations and feel cursed, feel punished, feel like there's something wrong. We've done something wrong. There's something wrong with us, or this is my karma. I just deserve it. And I always like to say, like, our understanding of these things, it's not so much a matter of right or wrong, because we can always understand things more comprehensively as we continue to awaken. So I always think of it as, is it helpful or not helpful? Is our interpretation and understanding of our lives and how we're thinking of it, does it serve our healing? Does it serve return? Does it create a space for healing and remembering? Or does it further perpetuate a consciousness of hurt and shame and separation? So I want to give a very obvious analogy to explain this. This is sort of very evident to all of us. And I would say this analogy is a great template for how I often think of everything in life is a reflection of everything in life. And you can find the greater teachings and the greater truths of life by looking at life. And I often reflect, especially being a father myself, that the relationship between parent and child is almost like a microcosmic holographic reflection, or parallel or metaphor even, for the relationship between creator and creation, or truth and its expressions, oneness and the return to oneness. So in this analogy, let's imagine a parental figure that is all loving, loves their child, sees the truth of them, sees the best in them. So this may be kind of impossible archetype of a perfect, completely unfalterable, loving parent. Of course, parents in our life journey, there's no such thing as like any perfect anything, because we're here. So we're just painting an analogy of this archetype. And what happens? This child, let's say we have a 5-year-old child, knows not to draw on the wall with the crayons. And the parent says, you may not draw on this wall. Crayons are not for drawing on wall. Not because it's bad or wrong, right? But because it's not functional. It doesn't serve alignment. That creates a dysfunctional reality where then you're constantly living in maintenance, needing to clean up walls. It's no different than you may not cross a red light in traffic. Not because it's bad or you're wrong. It's just, there's a reason for it. Okay, so this child then takes the crayons and pushes those boundaries. Saturn. It's what we all do with Saturn. I'm going to break the rules. And I'm going to break the rules because I actually don't yet know from within myself how to live in alignment. I need my parents to show me the way. I need them to teach me how to live in alignment. So I'm going to experiment with doing whatever I want, however I want to do it. And in this metaphor, the parent, without hate, without anger, but with firmness, says, you may not play with these crayons without my permission, and they are taken away. This child can no longer access the crayons on their own. They are put on a high shelf. And to play with crayons means supervision. It means I give them to you. To the child, that might feel unfair. There might be kicking and screaming, anger. The parent is not punishing the child. The parent is creating a parameter, a boundary, a template that will then serve the opportunity for this child to grow and evolve. That's Saturn. We can say, in a sense, Saturn corresponds to the archetype of jail. The metaphor, I was listening to David Hoffmeister recently, one of my Course in Miracles teachers, that read a letter from someone in jail who was having these deep spiritual realizations. And he says he realized that jail is a metaphor. That being in jail and seemingly being limited or blocked from the freedom of the body, it's allowed me to turn within and actually seek to understand who I am. And we can explore that, and we are all exploring that, all of us, in the quote-unquote jail that is manifest in our lives. And maybe using the word jail isn't the best, most compassionate way of thinking of it, but I want to clarify it's archetypally no different. It's limitations. It says, here is where you are at. And to change our reality means first meeting the curriculum. So for this child to become privileged to manage the crayons on her own, she needs to cooperate with the limitations that are manifest. The limitations don't define her. They don't define the parent. The limitations are like a temporary, pen that you're putting around the child. That's it. Time and space itself, we can understand ultimately as just a very temporary box that we're putting around ourselves. And we all kind of share some of the same boxes. Like we're all here. We're all experiencing a very similar dimension of time. We're all in bodies. We're all pretty much defined by the same rules, like gravity. And then more specifically, according to how the learning is manifesting for each of us individually, we'll find different rules, so to speak. And these rules don't define us, and they're not this is how it has to be. It's more like, this is what is now, but there's a reason for it. And yielding to our experiences with the wisdom is the first step in removing any kind of victimization. It's the first step in removing any kind of resentment or unuseful thinking. The shame, the blame, the punishment, which is not true to God. It's not true to reality. It's not true to love. It's the first step in removing ourselves from those confusing ideas and opening to what is the invitation here. And actually, we need look no further than how are we feeling. So this child is angry and resentful. In a sense, that points to the answer. Why were the crayons taken away? What's the lesson? The answer to that is found in my resistance to it. Meet that resistance. What's here? what's here is an existent orientation, an existent desire and fixation on, I need my own way. I need to do it this way. And so life is just sort of knocking us back and forth. And I think as we evolve, the knocking back and forth gets a little bit more narrow. It's like we have less leeway to bring us into awareness of, oh, I tried doing it my own way. I tried making up the rules, and reality, which is unwaveringly itself, says love isn't going to change. The truth isn't going to change. And our illusions and our efforts to make something else are permitted, but we're never going to be given any kind of free pass to experience true peace as a result. We can will our way through. That child metaphorically can rebel and say, I'm done, and walk out of the home. We can do it. We can get rebellious and say, I'm angry that I'm being limited, fail to acknowledge the curriculum, choose an even deeper state of victimization, and then life will just continue to make things hard for us. I mean, the parameters and the boundaries and the repercussions of that will continue to manifest, which itself can then become an ongoing opportunity to finally realize, okay, I'm dealing with something greater than my own making here. That's a powerful acknowledgement. Or it could also be like a sort of a catalyst to get more victimized. And that's the point of choice that we all have. Where does this choice come from? When I ask myself that question, I don't have an answer for it, but I come back to the moment, to the very present moment state of meeting what's here. Meeting the anger, meeting the resistance, meeting the fear, meeting the uncertainty. And there's a very important teaching. And I want to do my best to articulate it because it's a working learning on my own journey. Healing does not require that we have no impure thoughts. This is a paraphrase quote from A Course in Miracles. It says something to the likes of the holy instant, which is described as the moment where truth is true, where we accept what has actually always been true about who we are before, during, and after this experience of time and space. It's not necessary that we're in a total state of purity to experience and receive it. In fact, we can all acknowledge if we're in this school of earth life experience, it means we're working through stuff. What is necessary is that we would keep none of it for ourselves, that we not trick ourselves or lie to ourselves about what's inside. There's a teaching from Jesus, and I think the Gospel of Thomas, it says something like, if you hide what is inside of you, what is inside of you will destroy you. If you bring forth what is inside of you, what is inside of you will save you. It's absolutely necessary to say, okay, I'm here. What's time out for? Like when you put a child in, what is it for? To reflect. And Saturn is about reflection, introspection. Okay, I'm in jail now. I don't have these privileges. Why is that so? What's the teaching? What's the learning? What's the invitation for healing here? I have to, in order to achieve that level of insight, I have to be willing to really be in the present moment and look at myself. Look at, okay, well, this is what's happening inside. These are the thoughts I'm carrying. These are the addictions, the compulsions, the fears, the obsessions, the resentments. This is the past that I'm holding on to. This is the future that I'm obsessed with. We have to meet that. And I just keep on learning that all true change happens from a total meeting of the content and the program that we've been running in our consciousness over and over and over again. Otherwise, anything that we try to change becomes metaphorically spraying a nice scent over a foul-smelling odor. We can't force change. We can't repress ourselves to recondition and restructure a new reality. So if this child becomes self-aware, okay, I didn't act in alignment. I broke the rules. It's healthy for this child, again, in this example where there's loving and trustworthy parents, it's very helpful for this child to develop absolute trust in their parents. Absolutely. I'm going to use the word obedience, which is a word that can have a lot of trigger, especially with all of the conditioning we have around, follow the rules. But to have obedience to a source of unaltering love and goodness. It's in the child's best interest to trust the guidance of their loving, wise, knowing, understanding parents. And this doesn't mean they repress themselves. It means they ask, I want this. Can I have it? No, do this first. Eat your food first, and then we can have a treat. Movie time after dinner. They don't rely on their own thinking because there's the recognition, I am so defined by the limited fixation and narrowness of my desires and my cravings, of my obsessions. I'm so defined by who I think I am and what I think is important. In fact, we often think that if we don't force ourselves through life with what we think is most important to us, that we won't get it. But the opposite is true. If we recognize there is a source of what we are that we are actually inseparable from, that holds full awareness of not just what I need, but what you need, what we need. Like the needs of the one in its return are held in total unity. There's no like caring for that part and caring for that part. It's all interconnected. We all evolve and grow together. The consciousness of this loving, clear presence is holding all of it in total unity, no separation. So to acknowledge that this pervading intelligence and understanding and compassion knows what is best. If there's a need, if there's a journey to play out, if there's an experience to have, all of that will be given and provided. If I need something, but to get it means I have to kind of double down in this energy of resistance and separation and anger and resentment, it means my cosmological understanding in this moment of living is trusting is incompatible with me getting my needs met. And this is the edge that we're constantly working. So it feels like I have to separate myself and become identified entirely with my own will and really take control of time and space and force things and push things. The healthy, happy child relative to the clear, wise, loving parents is the child that really trusts their parents. And the parents will hold a very clear boundary with love and always redirect this child to living in love, in alignment, in a good way. So if we understand Saturn from that perspective, the limitations and the parameters that are manifest in our life right now are a precious present moment state of learning. And this is what this life is about. That's my understanding. We will graduate, quote unquote, when the need for these time-space parameters are no longer necessary. It's a very important statement. This child will receive full permission to use the crayons on their own when the need for the crayons to be removed is no longer necessary. Everything in our life is here for a reason. Time and space is here for a reason. And one of my favorite quotes from A Course in Miracles, which I very often quote, the purpose of time is to enable you to learn how to use time constructively. That's it. We can say the purpose of everything is to learn how to use everything constructively for the purposes of healing. And so we could acknowledge any choice that we're making right now, anywhere that we're attempting to apply our own will, we don't have the freedom to get and do whatever we want with our own insistence and complaining and whining. We do have the freedom to condition long-term changes and choices and to shift the structural reality of our life by meeting the curriculum with humility. You know, and Saturn corresponds to both the elder, the mentor, and the disciple. And that's discipline. I mean, really the deeper spiritual discipline from a Saturn perspective is really yielding ourselves to the deeper teachings of everything in our life. How can I use it well? How could I use it in alignment? One of the deepest traps is we get stuck in thinking things are valuable for their own sake. Because again, we're so conditioned by the world that says, you need this much money, or this is inappropriate, or this is how you should behave. And so we can easily forget that none of these things are valuable or meaningful or important on their own. So if we understand or consider the possibility that the entirety of this life, every single facet of it, is the forum for our ongoing realization and learning, it brings us back to a very sincere inquiry, which is, who am I? What is this all about? What is the true nature of my life? If this is all for my learning, then this must also all be for the greatest good. Which means if I'm producing fear, this is not about repressing fear. None of this should ever be taken in a mistaken way to say, well, I shouldn't be afraid because everything's for my highest good, but more a matter of sincere reflection. If there is fear, it must mean I don't yet understand the curriculum. Simple as that. Okay. If there's anger, anger is important. Anger arises. We can't repress it. There's a place for it on the healing journey. Sometimes just claiming the presence of anger is a necessary thing. I have to say that. It's very important because I understand for many, many souls, if there's a suppression of anger, these teachings can actually be very confusing. But the presence of anger, the presence of jadedness, the presence of fear, any unloving state of being is on its deepest level of understanding, actually just an invitation to become aware of, I have not yet come to understand what the teaching is. But to get the teaching, we have to meet the anger, we have to meet the jade. And this is the important thing, meeting it, being honest about it, not necessarily knowing what to do with it. And we're all going to make the decisions that we make. And that's going to lead us down the path. We're all at different places in our journey. And what's taught in evolutionary astrology, and this is really synonymous with every spiritual lineage I've ever seen, including A Course in Miracles, including Buddhism, in particular Buddhism, that this world, manifestation of human life is born from desire. Desire for some kind of experience. Our infinite, timeless being unified with the source of all things, we are seeking to know ourselves and remember ourselves. Let me have this experience. Let me know what it's like to feel powerful. So I'm going to create a human life in this kind of body with these circumstances to overcome these challenges and find what it's like to feel strong and powerful, make a lot of money and be well esteemed. There's some kind of evolutionary shift that happens. I can know myself in a new way. The human ego structure, the human identity is the vehicle for what the soul is wanting to experience. And when I speak of soul, I'm speaking about you and me. We come into this human life, into these forms and these parameters, which will give us these learning experiences where we're going to play out all of our desires. We're not going to arrive at our ultimate realization, however, until, and this is a quote from Jeffrey Wolf Green, all desires are exhausted until the only remaining desire is the desire to reunite with the source. That's the teaching. And I find that to be true. We can play out our desires, go through one experience and another experience, and that's going to keep us in various forms of time-space experience. We're going to have the caterpillar parameters. The rules of the caterpillar are defined. The caterpillar cannot play by butterfly rules. Try as much as you want to do positive affirmations in the mirror. You're not going to get the butterfly. Caterpillar rules are caterpillar rules, but present moment, we're in an evolutionary process. And at a certain point, the concentration on there's something more that I want to become. There's more to this life. I have unresolved desires. I'm needing something. And so I'm limited here, but there's something more. That's how we work with the reality of Saturn. We begin to condition, make new choices. And it gets to a point where we have to let go of the forms and the structures, of the templates. We have to evolve and graduate the existing form of the curriculum so we can grow and evolve. You graduate high school and you go to college, but you can't graduate high school until it's time to graduate high school, right? And we all know everything's a metaphor, right? So you can graduate high school and be one of those students that studied hard and worked hard and did their best, applied themselves, and they're ready. Or you can be one of those students that skipped out on class and failed a lot, and now it's graduation time, and they have to work really hard to catch up, and they might have to repeat a grade or go to summer school. One isn't better than the other. In fact, really, we can't judge. We just have to honor time, space, manifest how it does for all of us. But we graduate and we come into a new time, space parameter. This continues. So what I'm expressing here is we actually have to understand and interpret Saturn, the defined parameters of our reality, according to our evolutionary needs. Saturn will be understood for a butterfly on a different level than caterpillar. The archetype is the same. It means here's the template, here's the parameters for the curriculum of your learning, but it's manifesting in a different way. It's a different form. And we're going to continue manifesting these forms, these parameters, these places where we're going to work out what's next, until, again, there's no longer any desire except for singular realization. And I think that's something that we're all gradually finding. That's what the evolutionary journey is about. That's Pluto. That's what Pluto is all about, desire. Fundamentally, at the core of my being, what do I want? Not like identity level, I want an apple or I want to draw on the wall. If you think about Pluto relative to that child example, we would say the desire of this child is I'm wanting to work out my desire for absolute authority and freedom. And so this soul is going to create life experience where they're going to learn how to achieve greater authority, agency, and freedom and power in life. They're going to achieve that. But then they're also going to have to let go of that. And to achieve that, they're going to have to work with the Saturn lessons of alignment along the way. So coming back to the thesis of this talk, where's fate and where's free will? As a soul, as an infinitely powerful being, one with its creator, not defined or limited by anything of this world. You know, it's like the teaching in A Course in Miracles. The healer that has healed themselves can say to the mountain, move, and the mountain will move. I can't do that right now. Maybe there have been moments where there have been miraculous experiences. A miracle we can say is like a break, a momentary break where reality is present and the veil over reality just kind of stops for a moment. The seemingly real defined parameters of form fall away as truth leads the way. And when that happens, anything could happen. When we're looking at truth, there's nothing that can define or limit truth. So yeah, mountains could move, we could fly, and not that these things are meaningful. Anything could happen. So as long as we're still manifesting within time-space experience, coming back to this thesis, where's fate and where's free will? Our fate is determined by the nature of our consciousness. Our fate is determined by the desires we have not yet met. Is determined by that which is still unconscious and thus still leading the show. That will always thus express as a parent taking away the crayons and saying, here's the reality that you have to live within. And our choice is found in the present moment in meeting the curriculum and earnestly desiring to understand ourselves. Earnestly desiring to become self-aware, which means the cultivation, this is the passcode for those who are here live during this talk, the passcode for this Zoom meeting was trust. I feel that the quality of trust is necessary, and of course this is a Neptune principle, is necessary to meet the evolutionary curriculum and the content of our lives. Because trust fundamentally says, I am here now with what is. I don't know what I don't know. And I'm limited and defined by that which is yet to be met, by the unconscious desires fueling my life. And I have to meet it. That's the evolutionary journey. We have to meet the desires that we have. What we do with them It's not about playing it out or not playing it out. That's, again, giving too much meaning or value on form and time and space. It's about being completely honest with it and meeting the present moment curriculum with a quality of willingness and cooperation. In fact, Jeff Green teaches that when it comes down to it, we really have only two choices. From a Mars perspective, and I've often shared this in my teachings on Mars, we have many choices. Am I going to drink a smoothie with cacao, which is what I did, or eat eggs? Choices. I mean, there's thousands of choices. From an evolutionary perspective, if we understand what this life is really about, there are only two choices. It's to cooperate or resist evolutionary necessity. And I love that word, evolutionary necessity. It says caterpillar is caterpillar, and you got to play it out, and that's going to come to an end. And we have to meet the curriculum that's manifest within the caterpillar consciousness paradigm, learn from it, grow from it, and be willing to also let go of it when it's time to let go so we can move on. The evolutionary journey will take the form of saying, I want to become more. I want to experience more of this. And realizing, well, I have to let go of these patterns, these ways. And so the way that I've conditioned myself, these behaviors, these ways of thinking aren't useful. The evolutionary journey could also be, I've been so attached to being this, and I need to let go of that, and I don't know what's beyond that. These are cycles of evolution and involution. Evolution is the becoming something new, realizing more that we have not yet known. And with that comes a whole new paradigm. And I want to really say, when we come into a new paradigm, it's untranslatable to a prior paradigm. At a new paradigm of consciousness, we can maybe look back at a prior state of being. We can all understand this if we just look at our own lives with compassion, with understanding. We can recognize that in the past, we couldn't apprehend what we now do apprehend about self, about reality. We've all grown in wisdom and understanding. But we can't do it the other way around, right? So we can do it in retrospect. Butterfly can look back at caterpillar with an immense amount of insight and understanding, and look at those in caterpillar journey and say, trust, do your work, trust. You are meant to be where you are. But this other caterpillar ate my leaf. Meet that. Don't run away from that, please. Right? And that's where we learn trust. Maybe we are not yet butterfly, but our true self is already awakened. We already are what we are. And that's kind of like this whole journey of time is just a journey without distance, right? It's like we're trying to arrive at where we already are, but forgot because we began looking for something else, which then creates time. So we practice reminding ourselves of that. And then the involutionary process is that period where things are breaking down. Everything's breaking down. I no longer have what I had. There can be a permeating sense of loss or confusion or disorganization, and we haven't yet become that butterfly, right? It's the chrysalis, famous chrysalis phase. So I should say next year, we have a very powerful year. Pluto entering Aquarius, squaring the nodal axis of the moon. I'll be sharing a lot of teachings on that. I think every astrologer is going to be speaking about Pluto and Aquarius, but this is sort of one of those periods where we can really play with that word evolutionary necessity. There comes a time where it's time to evolve, and we ultimately face that choice to resist or cooperate. The free will piece is always that choice of right now. That's what I find. That's all I can know. And we don't know it unless we give ourselves the space to look again. We don't know our capacity to make different choices, which fundamentally means thinking differently about things. Which I would also say means not holding it or keeping it private, letting what is within be revealed. But we can't actually do that if we don't know that we're not doing that. It's sort of the power of consciousness, the power of free will, the power of our own agency is actually indescribable. Because I can't quite pinpoint how is it in every single moment in our lives when we have each made the choice to look within, to start again, right? To seek insight, to seek learning, to reorient ourselves towards truth first, to guide us and to teach us so that we can learn from our curriculum. Each time that we've done that, how did we know to do that? Like, how did we know to do that? Even if someone tells us to do that, when we actually do that, it's not following instructions because that's a concept. It's actually doing it. And I'm just mystified by that. The actual journey of cooperation, the actual act or present moment choice of cooperation and return, when I look at it, actually reflects the truth of my profound agency to come back home. And I don't know who's choosing it. That's just a beautiful, poetic, unanswerable reflection. I can understand on some level it's because I am not Ari Moshe. I am not this body and this human life that I think I am. And so when we do this cooperation work, it's actually our true nature making the choice. We can't grab that or possess that or understand that or categorize it. But we are learning that this human life is really just a satellite, kind of like the moon is a satellite for the earth. This human life and our life here on earth and our bodies and our ego structures or personalities, it's all a vehicle. It's a satellite, really, that follows the evolutionary directive of the soul itself. But when we start touching base with the soul itself, it's hard to define or pinpoint who's there, because it's definitely not this story. So let me speak a little bit to the natal chart. And then what I want to do is introduce the upcoming 2023 training program, where we're going to be learning all about how to work with astrology and the natal chart in service to our own soul evolution. So my training is in evolutionary astrology as taught by Jeffrey Wolf Green. What I teach is inspired by that, right? The essence of what I'm bringing forward comes from the learnings from this wisdom lineage. And I want to honor that and just acknowledge that the teachings of evolutionary astrology, in my experience, what's beautiful and valuable about them, it's not just an astrological paradigm or interpretive paradigm, it's a spiritual practice even. It's a way of using astrology as a way, as a path, as a tool for understanding our own awakening, our own spiritual evolution. So I forever hold an immense amount of respect and reverence for these teachings. That is really what I'm integrating in the work that I do. We can say that when we look at the natal chart, which is a map of where all the planets were at the date, time, location of our birth, we're actually looking at 3 dimensions. One, the natal chart speaks to the existing evolutionary dynamics within the soul that's resulted in a particular structural reality of this current life. So you're born into a body, into a culture, into a time, into a place with circumstances. And we can say that all of that is relevant to what you're needing for your own evolution. We can introduce the idea of a past life. And that's a very accessible and easy way to understand that this present moment life experience is just the next chapter in a long series of earth experiences. And just like right now is the next chapter of a long series of earth experiences that we've been playing out our entire life here. Right now, as well as in a macro level, this lifetime is the perfect template for our ongoing evolutionary journey and self-realization. So we look at the chart from that perspective, and it's a starting point. It says, okay, first and foremost, everything in the chart, where it's positioned, speaks to where you left off, right? It defines this is the context led to the creation of this lifetime, and thus level 2. It speaks to here are the evolutionary and karmic dynamics within the soul that is manifest starting this lifetime that sets the parameter and the stage for what we're here to experience in this lifetime and work through. And people often ask the question, like, how much of this life is sort of planned, right? It's like it's destined to happen versus, it depends on the choices that we're making. I really resonate with a quote from Ramana Maharshi that I often share. That which is meant to be will be. You can't do enough to prevent it. I'll translate that as that which is a part of the soul program is bound to manifest. But what's the soul program? The soul program is defined by the nature of our own consciousness, our desires. The desires that we have coming into this lifetime define the program. Jumping from where we are to an ultimate level of infinite self-awareness of eternal being is not possible. We have to meet the content of where we are, and we can't skip stages. We have to start with where we are and walk the path and see where it leads us, see where it takes us. So we have to appreciate the fact that we're all significantly unconscious of what's inside of us. There are many facets of this lifetime that I've come to recognize that are just a part of the program. We can't do anything to change it. And there is that function of choice and free will, which is always a matter of us reconnecting with our nature as soul, as the infinite agency of being that we have, where we do make changes, which means we change our thinking, we look at things differently. That can, in fact, change the circumstantial reality of our life. It's not for me ever to say to anyone, yep, you have to have these hard experiences in 10 years. What I can say is those hard experiences you had 10 years ago, they were meant to be. Not because of some kind of like fatalistic, God wrote that and it had to be. It's because it is. What is the only reality there is. And that has set the stage for where we are right now. If it didn't need to be, then it wouldn't have been. So again, it's about helpful and not helpful. What was is, and that's a part of our program, and accepting and seeking to heal and learn from it, meeting it fully, which we're all doing. And sometimes that really means working with heavy trauma, working with things where we don't have an answer for it, and it might take some time, but it's all a part of our curriculum. So reading the natal chart as the template from which in this lifetime we're going to grow and learn. Here are the evolutionary dynamics at play. And it's a powerful thing to do, to read a chart and to understand here are the existing soul dynamics that you bring into this lifetime. The only thing I can tell a person is, I don't know what's going to come. I don't know what's going to change. We know that what's happened is what's happened. It's unalterable. Even if we want to be philosophical about it and say never happened, the past happened, it's unalterable. Our own experience has led us to where we are right now. Our understanding of it, our story of it can absolutely change, and how we work with it for the sake of healing and ultimately come to a profound realization. Healing happens when we can understand that everything serves our greatest benefit. It's a powerful state of consciousness, completely free of any victimization. And that happens when we fully integrated and reclaimed ourselves through all experiences. And then we see what happens. Like, okay, you might spend a couple more years in caterpillar, but maybe there's a butterfly stage happening a little bit later down the road. The only thing that we can do is do our work. And working with the natal chart at this level says, here's the work. And so the third level of reading the natal chart is a little bit off the chart. It says, I can read the archetypal dynamics in the chart and say, here's a curriculum, here are the dynamics you're working with. Now you talk to me about yourself. Talk to me about what's alive, what's present for you. Where's the struggle? Where are the questions? Where's the inquiry? What's alive? Because when I feel that in the individual that I'm working with, when I can feel what's authentically true for the person's own present moment edge of evolutionary growth, I can then take that back to the chart and say, here's the evolutionary intention. Let me do my best to offer some awareness, offer some perspective. And when we do that with compassion, recognizing that we're all here sharing the same journey. Slightly different curriculums in terms of form, same journey. It's like we all got a nose and an ears, but they look different. But like we can all understand the physiology of nose and ears. We can all understand the physiology, so to speak, of the spiritual journey, even though there are slightly different forms. So I'll close this piece by saying working with a natal chart through this lens is a practice of immense compassion, personal healing, and really learning how to see all of life from this perspective that we do have an immense amount of power. We all have an immense amount of power to grow and to make changes. And what is possible for us is beyond anything that we can know. All we can do is do our work. And we also have to cultivate a humility and a recognition, a reverence to where we are right now. And recognize that what's meant to be now is exactly where we are. And that there are certain dimensions of life experience that are simply beyond our control. How do we know? Because it happened. That's all we need to know. And what is beyond our control and what has happened, we need not worry too much about, ultimately to come back and seek to understand what our work is. So these are my reflections on the idea of fate, choice, and the natal chart. And I hope that this perspective both, leaves us more with an open curiosity and an interest in both the power and the potential of our own capacity for change and growth, and simultaneously the recognition that we're also that 5-year-old child that doesn't know what they don't know. And so we need to just really open up to where the curriculum is and trust it. Be cultivating good discipleship. So let me now introduce this upcoming training program. This is the 2023 Heart and Soul Centered Astrology Training Program. This entire course is about teaching the paradigm of evolutionary astrology through the lens of my own personal way. As you can see, I bring in a lot of my own life teachings, my own ongoing integration of insight and learning. I work a lot with A Course in Miracles. I'm working a lot with my own inquiry into my own journey, my own awakening. Who am I? What is this all about? What is most important for me? So I'm working with this beautiful lineage in a way where I'm continually refining and shaping and offering the teachings of astrology in service to our remembering, in service to our awakening and return to love. So this entire course is also a spiritual immersion. It's an opportunity to deepen in our own personal work. It's inspiring. It brings us back into an awareness of what's really most important. So the course has 2 parts. The Essentials course is just the beginning. Many people take the Essentials course because just the teachings are valuable. We learn the evolutionary meaning of all of the 12 signs, houses, and the planets. And we work with putting the planets in various house sign combinations. We're not interpreting charts yet in the first 5 months of the year. In this first part, we're just learning the basics. And that alone, just learning and studying, going deep into the archetype of Venus. Right? There's so much wisdom, so much beauty, so much healing in just these teachings. And the teachings are composed of both pre-recorded content that I've shared, a full transcription of all the video content, workbook with notes and review questions. Then we have an online forum and live Q&A. And the live Q&A is where the present moment edge of our ongoing journey and realization continues to blossom. I get to respond to the questions and offer what is most helpful and in service to our learning. And I deeply care about each student's learning experience. I'm completely committed to doing my best to support each student, and I give according to the efforts that are put in. And anyone that's ever worked with me can recognize that is very true. And those who are really doing a lot of the practice work, really applying themselves, get a lot of attention and support from me. The container is also incredibly loving and inclusive. Naturally, a community is formed. Friendships and bonds are created. The second part of the course is chart interpretation. Same structure, pre-recorded content, workbook. It's a much bigger workbook. The chart interpretation course is really working with interpretive technique. And it's a lot more practice. So there's a great emphasis on our live meetings, on actually working with our own charts, live time to apply the teaching. They're not therapy sessions, but they're saying, let's look at what we're learning in our own charts and apply them, understand them. So I do my best to give real life examples for what we're learning as we're working with the interpretive technique. And a part of this course also includes applying transits and secondary progressions. This whole thing takes an entire year. Many students that are already trained in evolutionary astrology do, in fact, join at the chart interpretation course. That's possible. If you've already studied EA, you can jump in at the chart interpretation course, but you have to interview with me because I need to make sure that you are, in fact, ready for it. Otherwise, what I recommend for everyone is start with the Essentials course. I even recommend this for those that are already trained in EA, in evolutionary astrology. There's something incredibly valuable about starting from the beginning, from the ground up with a teacher that you trust, that you resonate with. Being in a solid learning container that can really honor and respect the integrity and the clarity of your own training and learning. It can be a gift that we give to ourselves by saying, I am really going to study this seriously. I want to learn this. Whether we want to give readings and do this work for others, or many people will integrate their astrology learning in their existing healing modalities. They don't have to become a full-on astrologer. Or even if it's just for our own personal spiritual growth and development. So this entire training program from the very beginning of the year is for anyone that wants to study, total beginners to astrology, as well as those that are already practiced. Now, what happens after that is the practicum. And this will also begin soon. For students that have trained with me, or for students that have already been training very deeply in evolutionary astrology, I'm going to be opening up a solid several months container of practice where I model live volunteer chart readings so that we can all witness that and osmose that and really learn more from experiencing that. And then I support each student to do their own readings as well. And there are several other kind of components to the practicum. And that's like the second year program. But for those that are studying in EA, stay tuned because I'm going to be launching that soon. And it will be available for a select few that are that didn't train with me but are ready for it. So let me just share the course page for a moment, just to show you what we're looking at here. You know, what I share in this introduction is really what I've said here. This life is for waking up. Everything, our body's time, relationship, is a part of the unraveling of our true and eternal self. The meaning of this life is to use it as best as we can to grow, learn, heal, and let go. So this training program teaches astrology as a practice that provides profound and insightful knowledge into our each individual unique path of awakening. So we had the part 1, part 2 courses. Let me just go over, all the segments. Part 1 of the Essentials course is philosophy, zodiac. We spend a whole segment on the astronomy of the natal chart. It's a very important thing to learn. What's the basic astronomy that comprises the natal chart? Houses, and then really more than half of our course is segment 5, working on the planets. Part 2 is all lunar nodes. Learn the nodes, learn how to work with Pluto and the lunar nodes, aspects and phases, working with Pluto and the nodes with aspects and phases, and then transits and progressions. So what's included is many hours of video content, workbook, transcription, live practice work in the second part of the year. We also have on the alumni from previous years returning to support new students. This is one of the best things about this course. So 2022 was my second year teaching. And during this year, I had 3, maybe 4, but definitely 3 solid individuals from the 2021 program that returned during the Essentials course, and even more so during the chart interpretation course. 2 of them offered, 4 individuals. 2 of them offered additional practice embodiment classes to embody the teachings, which is really cool. And then 2 of them offered tutoring. One of them was smaller groups. One of them was more one-on-one practicing. I love that. For them, it's a part of their ongoing training, right? I've supported these individuals in reading charts, in practicing. Many of them have been working with me for a good year and a half. And now supporting the teaching as an alumni support, they're in service, helping newer students, but continuing to deepen their own learning. So it's just a beautiful ecosystem where we have a combination of people at all different levels and alumni supporting new students. I just feel so good about that. So we begin the Essentials course in January 15th, that week. That's when the segment 1 content opens up. Here is the pricing. Right over here, we have a tuition assistance form for anyone who needs it. In fact, I would say in my past courses, more than half of my students probably were on some kind of tuition assistance. Many people, such as younger people, students, elderly people, or people on disability on a fixed budget. There are all kinds of examples of people that just because of where they're at in life need financial aid. So I want this course to be available to those that are so called to be a part of this. And it's my own internal work to continue to refine and find ways to make this work. And thus, I've also created a donation option. This is so that those who are inspired and have the means can donate to support those who are in need of financial aid and assistance. This gives me and supports me to have what I need so I can continue to live these values. So I can continue to offer 50% discounts to those that really need that. So we have the payment plan option. All of my tuition assistance is applied to the payment plan option. It's essentially a discounted payment plan. And if you're doing the Essentials course, the payment plan is 6 months. If you're doing the full year training program, which does give you an immediate $200 off if you're going to enroll in the entire program, that is on a 12-month payment plan program. Likewise, I also have an additional discount for return students. Like any students that have already taken this course with me can join any year for just 10% of the cost. You have lifetime access. Once you've taken this course with me once, you have lifetime access to all of the material. But if you want to return and be a part of the forum, if you want to be a part of the live classes, you just pay 10% of the total cost and you can join every single weekly class, be a part of the forum, and fully take advantage of the course. So, and that's a big value of mine to make this available ongoingly. I also have a discount for any student that is enrolled in the Jeffrey Wolf Green School of Evolutionary Astrology. I want to honor the school that I trained in and just respect and honor those that have invested in that school, and just recognize that my teaching is a complement and a support and in service really to these teachings. It is its own thing. I have my own way, but I really also recognize that there's total compatibility with what I'm doing and with the school that I trained in. So we have lots of wonderful testimonials here. And I do invite everyone to check out the FAQ. I do invite you to get in touch with me if you have any questions, if you want to talk about it. Enrollment is open and we begin in a month. So what we're going to do right now is just open up this field. I want to invite, I believe there was one student, I don't know if she's still here, Adrianna offered to give a little testimonial. And if there are any other past students that want to jump in and give a 30-second testimonial of what it was like to be a part of this training program. I can see here, I'm just looking at the view of everyone. I have a really beautiful combination of current students, 2021 students, and people that I've never seen before. So, Adrianna, if you want to unmute yourself, you're welcome to give a word, and I'll give space for anyone else to do that too. And then I want to open it up to Q&A, either on today's teaching or on the course itself.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So, hello everyone. I'm one of those that had taken 2 times the course, 2 years in a row. And I think that what Ari just shared with us in the beginning, the whole class today show how deep is the teachings. For me, I love astrology, but more than that, it was about healing my understanding and healing my own soul. And it's so interesting how much synchronicity in the growing process we have. We can see. So now when Adi was speaking with us, I said, oh my God, this is also, it's such a depth of wisdom. It never ends. And astrology is the support of it. So yeah, I want to encourage everyone to be part of this class. I really love it.
Thank you so much, Adrianna. I really appreciate that. And that reminds me too, you're from Brazil. There is a very important value that I hold. There are several students in my course that are from countries where their cost of living is very different than that of the US. It's just the reality. That's another reason why I have a very available financial assistance option, because paying $185 a month in certain countries is very different than doing that in the US in terms of cost of living. I think we have Ariel. Yes, you want to share something, and you also have a question. You want to share a testimonial. Go for it.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I just want to share that.
Are you able to get your video on? Is that possible?
I am, but I'm in a face mask. So
okay, no worries.
this is I'm in I don't have my son. I'm doing mom self-care things. Yeah. So I'm in a face mask. But I just wanted to share how deeply healing this experience was for me. I did the full year, and I did it during a time where I was actually having very heavy transits and things happening and actually physically moving country, and the relationship between what I was going through and then what I was getting to learn from just an astrological perspective then gave me so much more breadth in how I was viewing my experience and feeling this deep connection to source. It was like the whole experience felt like being a part of a family. And even there were times where I wasn't present as I was moving, but I felt you all. And I just really encourage anybody who's interested in astrology, yes, but also this deeper understanding of how to be a human and a spirit, and this harmonious combination of both that we are. This is such a beautiful place to come and just have compassion and love and connection and community. So couldn't recommend it more.
Thank you so much, Ariel.
Yes. And then I actually, unless there's someone else that wants to jump in, I do have a question for you. So you can either circle back.
Let's hear it. Yeah.
So the thing that has been percolating in me with all of this is the intersection between us evolving and the planets evolving, and our relationship, whether it's the intersection between what you want to call the law of frequency or law of attraction and what you're speaking about today, fate and free will. And I'm curious, as we as a collective evolve, kind of how you had touched on Saturn, that the archetype of Saturn, maybe we're not fully grasping what the archetype of Saturn truly deeply is from a holistic perspective. I'm just so curious, as we evolve, as one person kind of awakens their consciousness, that ripples out, more people can have that experience. Are we evolving or affecting the planetary transits as well? Will our experiences be different?
Yeah, I think so. I think as more souls evolve, the status quo, the bar is raised. And then it's like the consensus reality, the mainstream of life itself on this planet, the standards of normalcy themselves evolve and grow. Like, for example, we have the mainstream schooling system, let's say in the United States, where there's a predominant focus, and this is changing, right? But in the mainstream schooling system, there's a predominant focus on results, studying for a test and getting the passing grade. And children are mostly trained to succeed in answering questions and studying and memorizing content and knowing things. And that reflects a particular perspective, a Saturn dimension, right? It's like a particular conditioning where that's how we understand Saturn. And it entrains a particular consciousness where it's all about success or failure. But what evolves, and we're seeing more alternative schools pop up in even many communities where it's not alternative. It's like that's kind of what's available. Like here in Sonoma, there is a Waldorf school, which is an otherwise alternative educational system that's actually funded by the state. And that's an amazing evolution. And in the Waldorf cosmology, the structure and thus the disciplining, the learning that takes place, the parameters that are being created for children to learn and grow are very different than in the mainstream educational system. And just to give one example, there's a lot of a greater focus on the child's creative and imaginative development, and not forcing reading and writing at a certain place, but really honoring life cycles and developmental stages for that individual that is more natural for that soul. There are certain things about that education that is a lot more focused on song, teaching through singing. I have a friend that's a Waldorf teacher that sings to her kids all the time. And teaching through song is entering consciousness through a completely different lens. And just imagine an educational structure where we're using school to help people learn and remember how to live as love. Where we're talking about training students to really get in touch with their own inherent gifts and learning how to cultivate and use that with confidence, with purpose, with meaning to value and contribute to the world. So I think as more of us individuate and claim a more loving and evolved understanding of form and time and space, it absolutely has the effect of totally reshaping the status quo of life on this planet. And that's where we can say consensus reality itself changes, evolves and grows as more individuation happens. And it starts with individual people doing that work and making these changes and doing the work. And then collective, that's the communal, that's an Aquarian principle. Groups of people eventually join and catch on. And once that happens, it becomes a new status quo. So those are my thoughts on that question.
Thank you so much.
Was that addressing your question?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. My mom is a humanistic Waldorf teacher, so I was
cool.
in that. And yeah.
Let's see. Jane, would you like to unmute yourself?
I had studied astrology several years ago, and for the last almost 50 years, I've been reading mostly. And when I talked to Ari last year, I basically didn't want to get into a group study because I wasn't sure how my time would work out. The self-study course is the way that I've been doing it, and all I can say is the material is phenomenal. You do not feel like you're missing anything except this interaction, and this interaction, from everything I can tell, would be quite helpful. But the workbook, the texts, all of the presentations are just phenomenal. And all I can say is thank you, Ari. You've done a fabulous job. Now, I have to admit, I also, because you keep referring to Jeffrey Green, I decided to go ahead and buy some of his books. So I was looking at Uranus, I was reading the Uranus book. Or when I was looking at Pluto, I was reading the 2 Pluto books. So I supplement, but the whole point is I want to get into the part 2 class when it happens in August. So I noticed you didn't show the pricing if you've already done part 1, whether or not you have a separate price for part 2 that's published on the website that I didn't see, or if you wait until later to decide how that goes. But all I can say is if anybody hasn't done this, do it.
Thank you so much for that testimony, Jane. And I'm glad you brought that up because I have a self-study option. You can go to my website under the teachings tab, and instead of enrolling in the live training program, the essentials, only the essentials course is available as self-study. I have not made the chart interpretation part 2 available in that way because I think it really does want more of a container of practice. That's what I feel right now. That's what I'm exploring. But for those that are not feeling to be a part of the live container or just don't have the time for that, but you want to study the content, you can purchase the entirety of the Essentials course content as a self-study option and then upgrade. There are, I think, 2 students, or for sure 1 already, that has contacted me who will be joining the live Essentials course in 2023. after having studied the essential course by themselves. And that's happened a few times already in 2022. So that option is available for you if you are not feeling available for the live program. And also, Jane, first of all, good to see you. I don't know if I've seen your face. Maybe it's been a while. People who are doing the self-study, I don't get to see them. So this is cool. You remind me, down the road, I'm actually going to teach a composite and synastry chart course. And we're going to use Jeffrey Wolf Green's Pluto 2 book as one of the required texts. So stay tuned for that. I'm very excited about that offering. We also have a retrograde class series that is really focused on each retrograde planet. Once the composite and synastry class is taught, I think I'll actually have a full curriculum. You know, chart interpretation, transits, progressions, retrograde planets, composite synastry. So that's going to be coming up as well. So Iman, are you wanting to unmute yourself? Oh, and Judy, I saw you raise your hand. So after Iman, you need to leave. So you're just saying you can testify to the deep teaching of the course as I've completed the whole series, and you did. And, you know, Iman's one of the examples of a soul that has been totally, deeply committed and engaged. There are people every year at different levels of readiness. Some people can't attend all the classes. Some people need to catch up and can drop in on the live classes when possible. But I'm just really grateful for the opportunity to really have a deep, intimate relationship and connection to a good handful of souls that have seen this through. Oh, you're still here. Go for it.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, it's just 2 minutes. I need to leave. Hi, everybody. I know I've been in contact with Ari for a while, but I can say that couple of years I spent with him and with the community truly has been a life-changing event for me. I was going through still a little bit turbulent period of my life. I'm not over yet, but what can I say is that the rays of consciousness that brought this course to me equipped me to face my shadow and my uncertainties, so I become co-creator than just feeling that I am a victim of the events. So the planets are not nasty, we just look at them and we got afraid of them, but actually if we know how to work with the energies, it is really very deep healing into it. And Ari way of teaching is just so honest, so profound. So I'm so grateful to you, Ari, for everything you give us every single day, which really testify of your own level of consciousness. I'm still a student, I'm still learning, I'm still following Ari and following, astrology as it changed my life. Thank you, Ari.
Thank you so much, Iman. Great to see you. Thank you. So let's take one more share from Judy, who just completed the 2022 program.
Hi, everybody. I just want to say that, Ari, you've been fabulous. The space that we've had to learn and grow together was so special and so sacred. For me, I look at life as we're in relationship to everything. And if you don't understand yourself, how can you participate in life and everything that's going on around us with any kind of wisdom? The amount of wisdom that you share is phenomenal. Not only has it helped me grow as an individual, but I'm able to respond to situations, to challenges, instead of reacting, because I have a better understanding of what the energies are that are presenting themselves. And for that, I can't thank you enough. I really encourage everybody to take the course. Thank you.
And can I share, you'll be taking it again, correct, next year?
Yes, I am going to do it again. I got so depressed toward the end of the class, I just can't give up the space. It's just too beautiful of a group. And I am a firm believer that every time you read something or hear something, it takes you a little deeper. And I don't want to quit the journey.
Great. Thank you so much, Judy. Yeah, I mean, there was a good few people from the 2021 program that returned in 2022, and I imagine something similar will happen again this coming year. So the course environment is a combination of souls at different levels of astrological knowledge, different walks of life, return students, alumni, completely new astrological students. So it's just a very diverse and inclusive ecosystem. So let's bring this class and this promotional time to a close. And I want to again thank everyone for coming and joining this class today, and everyone who's watching this recording. Thank you for the opportunity to share. Please be in touch for any reasons. This enrollment is open, and I hope you will consider it. And I look forward to sharing this journey with whomever I get to work with next year. Okay, so much love to you all. Bye.